It was close to midnight when the knock came. Soft at first, then firmer like someone unsure whether they had the right door. Single dad Ethan's heart froze in the hallway, his daughter asleep upstairs, the house quiet except for the buzzing kitchen light he kept forgetting to fix. Nobody visited this late. Nobody ever needed him at this hour. When he opened the door and saw his boss, Ms. Rowan, standing on his porch with her coat half zipped and eyes red like she'd been crying, his heart nearly stopped. She looked at him as if she was holding on to her last thread of strength. And then she whispered something he couldn't make sense of at first. "Ethan, say that again while you look at me." Before the story begins, I want to remind everyone to like, subscribe, and comment to support the channel Hero Dad Kindness. Your engagement helps more people hear stories that inspire compassion, courage, and heart. Ethan had learned to live with pressure. He worked the evening shift at a mid-sized printing company in Ohio, juggling long hours and parenting in a world that didn't slow down just because he was alone. His wife had passed 3 years earlier, and ever since, every day felt like climbing a hill with weights tied to his chest. But he kept climbing for one reason: his daughter Lily. She was 9, bright, imaginative, and always drawing pictures of their tiny home like it was some magical castle. She didn't see the missing shingles, the squeaky heater, the faded paint. She only saw safety, love, her dad, and that kept Ethan going. At work, he stayed quiet, got things done, avoided trouble. His boss, Ms. Rowan, was known for being tough, but fair, sharp, organized, and always in control. She didn't look like the kind of person who'd ever show up at an employee's door at midnight. Earlier that day, something unusual had happened. She'd stopped him after a meeting and asked if everything was okay at home. He said what he always said: "I'm fine." She looked at him for a long moment before replying softly, "You always say that." But he didn't think much of it. He had orders to print, machines to fix, a daughter to pick up. Life didn't pause. Now, standing at his doorway with her eyes full of something he couldn't read, she repeated the question she'd asked at work. "Ethan, say it again. Say you're fine. But look at me this time." He didn't understand until he did. She wasn't doubting his performance. She wasn't checking on deadlines. She was checking on him. He swallowed, trying to stay steady, but the weight of months, maybe years, pressed down on him. Something cracked inside. His voice trembled. "I'm not fine." The words hung there, fragile as glass. Ms. Rowan exhaled like she'd been waiting for him to finally let them out. She stepped inside when he motioned her to, and they sat at the kitchen table where unpaid bills were stacked neatly in a folder he tried not to look at too often. She told him why she came. Her mother had suffered a medical emergency that evening. She had no siblings, no one to call. She'd left the hospital overwhelmed, panicked, and for reasons she couldn't explain, she found herself driving to the one person who, despite his quiet nature, always carried storms with such dignity: "Ethan." "I thought I was strong," she said, wiping her eyes with the back of her sleeve. "But today, I didn't want to be strong alone." Ethan listened, his own heart softening in ways he hadn't let happen in a long time. He offered her tea, the cheap kind he bought on sale, and she smiled like it was the most comforting thing she'd tasted in years. They talked for hours, not about work, not about responsibilities, but about life, loss, fear, the ache of pretending you're okay when you aren't. When Lily woke up with sleep-soiled hair and wide eyes, she tiptoed into the kitchen. She blinked at seeing her dad's boss at their table. But kids have a way of sensing truth faster than adults. She walked to Ms. Rowan, placed a small hand on her arm, and whispered, "My dad makes things feel better. He'll help you." It broke something open for both of them. By the time dawn approached, the heaviness in the room had shifted. Not gone, but lighter, like it had been shared by 3 hearts now instead of 1. In the following days, things at work changed in quiet, meaningful ways, not favoritism, not special treatment, just kindness exchanged like 2 people who finally understood each other. When Ethan's car broke down, she arranged for the company to cover half the repair cost under an employee support program he never knew existed. When her mother needed long-term care planning, Ethan referred her to a local nonprofit that had once helped him during his hardest year. Kindness moved back and forth like a gentle tide. No scorekeeping, no expectations, just humanity. One Friday afternoon, the company held a small award ceremony for outstanding employees. Ethan wasn't expecting anything. He blended into the background as usual. When Ms. Rowan stepped up to the microphone, her voice carried the steady confidence she was known for, but with a warmth that surprised everyone. There are people in this world who hold themselves together even when life is trying to break them, she said. People who don't ask for sympathy because they're too busy taking care of others. Today, we honor one of them. She called Ethan's name. He froze. The room applauded. Lily, invited secretly, ran to him with the brightest smile. Ms. Rowan handed him the award, but then she leaned in slightly and said softly, "You don't have to be fine all the time. None of us do." Her words echoed the night she first came to his door. Only this time, he looked right at her and nodded, stronger than before. Months later, the memory of that midnight knock still lived in Ethan's mind. Not as something strange or troubling, but as the moment kindness opened a door both ways. His life wasn't suddenly easy. Bills still needed paying. Parenting still exhausted him. Work was still work, but he no longer carried everything alone. And neither did she. Sometimes kindness doesn't appear with grand gestures or perfect timing. Sometimes it comes as a late-night knock from someone who seems unshakable until they aren't. Sometimes it begins with simple words spoken honestly face to face. "I'm not fine." And sometimes that honesty becomes the bridge that saves two people from drowning silently. If you're watching this right now, let this be your reminder. Someone around you might be holding more than they can carry. And someone else, maybe even you, might need a safe place to knock when the night feels too heavy. Be that place. Be that kindness. Because the smallest moment of compassion can change a life sometimes, too. And it all begins when we choose to truly look at each other and